All right, off, running. The Donovan Live Postgame Show is underway on a Wednesday evening. I'm Dave DeNatale alongside Jim Donovan. Good to have everybody with us. Boy, no shortage of headlines today in Cleveland sports. I mean, you were in the A block on Channel 3 News, and I mean, not only there was Cavs news, there's Indians news, and there's Browns news. So we'll get to the Cavs and the Indians in a second. Both have to do with health issues, but obviously the focus of this entire offseason basically came into view today. Yeah. Odell Beckham Jr. in Berea with the Browns at minicamp, taking questions, and Jimmy, he's happy. He's a happy guy.
He's giddy.
He's giddy.
Yeah, he's giddy. He described himself as being giddy. He can't believe he's here. He can't believe Baker Mayfield is throwing him passes. He loves Baker Mayfield. Of course, we know he loves Jarvis Landry. They're brothers. And, I mean, you know, it's his best friend in the world. He wants to live next door to him.
Right.
Wants to have a house right next door to him. So if you are living next to Jarvis Landry, I think you're going to get a good offer.
That's right.
And he was terrific. I have to tell you, he was really terrific.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he's had maybe because he was a New York Giant and he was in the limelight and spotlight of the NFL for a lot of different reasons, some good, some not so good. He's used to doing this, but he was a real pro. He was great today. He talked about, he's having no trouble picking things up. And it's only going to get better. And he's going to work on it in Los Angeles during this time that they get after tomorrow's final practice, because they break before training camp. But in those weeks, they're all going to get together, Landry and Njoku, Mayfield, and Odell Beckham Jr., and they're going to catch passes, and they're going to run routes, and they'll get Callaway there and Higgins there, and they'll be all on the same page. But it looked good because remember now, he only had the one voluntary practice that he was at, but he spent 2 days of minicamp, and I have to tell you, the offense looks phenomenal. And then he said today, never mind the offense, the defense looks really tough. Greedy Williams had a pick six today. Really great play. Denzel Ward all day long going up against Odell Beckham, and Odell Beckham Jr. saying, hey, listen, I'm going to work with him, and he's going to work with me.
That's going to be, and that was one of the things I don't think that got talked about a lot.
Right.
When the trade happened, it's like, not only is Beckham going to be a problem for opposing defenses, but he's going to be a tool to help the Browns secondary, the Browns defense get better, and in particular, the two young corners, Ward and Williams.
Yeah, and it really is fun to watch. I mean, it was a real good-hearted but very competitive battle all day long. I mean, Denzel Ward's going up against one of the best receivers in the NFL every day in practice. And that's Odell Beckham Jr., and he is going to benefit from that. There's no question about it. But when you go down into the various levels, especially at wide receiver, because they have been empty at wide receiver
big time
through the 21 years now that they're going into it. And Jarvis Landry was an upgrade. There's no doubt about it. Great player last year. But still, when you add this guy, and Higgins is playing well, and Callaway's coming along now, and there are some other guys. There's this guy Hyman, Ishmael Hyman, that came from the AAF, that is really playing well. Jalen Strong's making a case for himself. There are two guys who were with them last year that are going to have to get on the field. They've been injured, Derek Willis and Damian Ratley. They haven't been on the field. And I'm going to tell you something. You miss time with this group, and you become a forgotten guy on this team, and they're going to move along. As Mayfield said yesterday, the train's moving, okay?
Right.
It's leaving the station. So if you're with us, hop on the train. But I thought Odell Beckham Jr. was great today.
Yeah.
And if he should ease a lot of people's fears that he's not happy. He realizes he's in a great football situation. Because he said, I've never won the championship game. He thought he won a championship game in 6th grade and they waved off the basket. He told a story about being in a championship game in basketball, and a kid hit a shot very, very late, and Odell Beckham Jr. got the ball, and with 1.8 seconds from half court, he threw it up, and it went in, and he's dancing around because they've won the championship, and the ref said it was too late.
No basket, no. Oh,
and he cried for days. So he's thirsty to win a championship.
I can just imagine. This is what happens, Jimmy, and we see this all the time. There's a perception in the national media, and sometimes I think it's because this time of year there's not that much to talk about outside of the NBA Finals and what have you, where a guy like Colin Cowherd can sit there and while he's bashing Beckham, it's also making it sound like, well, how can you be happy to be in Cleveland? And, it's a New York thing sometimes, I think. How could people be happy to be in Cleveland? Hey, look, this team is on the way up. I think everybody knows that around the NFL.
Oh, no doubt about it.
There's the relationship with Landry. There was already a relationship there with Mayfield. You sit there. It's easy for us to sit there and say, as Browns fans and people who cover the Browns, that, man, once people get in here and find out how passionate this team and the city is about football, of course you'll love it. But if you're on the outside looking in, that's why I think that perception's there, and that's why people can say, well, if he's not coming to OTAs, so he must be unhappy. And
right.
That's where I think a lot of that comes from, and that's why I was never really concerned, and you were never concerned.
No,
about
I
it.
really wasn't concerned because I don't think he's really ever been a big part of OTAs, even with the Giants. Before he came here. But I will say this, he's always ready to play.
Yes.
And he's not a guy, he's had some injuries, there's no question about that cut short, his seasons a couple of times, but he's in great shape, and I think he knows he's an elite athlete. Mayfield described him as this. He's an elite athlete that knows what it takes to get his body ready to play, and you have to trust in that. He knows what it takes, and he also knows how much time he needs with his teammates to be ready to play, and I think he's comfortable that he is going to have enough time to be ready to go by the start of training camp. And he hit on this point probably 2 or 3 times during his really long session with the media today, and that was, hey, listen, we don't play, it's June 5th.
Yeah.
We don't play till September, okay? And things look good June 5. Imagine what they're going to look like on that opening day down the street from us, where we're coming to you from right now, when they take on the Tennessee Titans. And the other thing that he's excited about, and I think anybody would be, to be part of bringing this franchise back from where it's been and where it was a couple of years ago, that is going to be, you're part of a major sports story, which I have always said in the past, that I think it's going to be one of the great comeback stories in American sports history when they win.
When they win. You can see right now we've got plenty of coverage at WKYC.com from Odell Beckham, what he had to say today, also what Freddie Kitchens had to say as well. I want to backtrack a little bit to yesterday, because the other storyline coming into minicamp was going to be Duke Johnson. Now, Duke was here. He's still here. He'll be here tomorrow. And then we won't see him until training camp. He made it clear right from the outset he's not happy, and frankly, there's really nothing that anybody can do to make him happy, but he's also not going to make waves. He'll play. As long as he's here, he's going to play.
Right.
What was your takeaway from that, plus what Baker had to say, that essentially, hey, look, his unhappiness is self-inflicted?
Let's dive into that. Through my years of being around Duke Johnson, so every year that he's been here since coming out of the University of Miami, I have never felt that he was happy. Okay, so it's not just because Kareem Hunt is here or that he found out that he was on the trading block. I don't think he's ever been happy because, now mind you, he came out of the University of Miami. He's the all-time leading rusher in Miami football history. That's a mouthful. They've had some pretty good guys there. Right?
I was going to say.
Frank Gore, Edgerrin James,
Portis,
Willis McGahee, James Jackson, sort of. All right, they've had a lot of good running backs there. He's the guy at the top of the list. So he's always wanted to be a primary back, an every down back, a 25, 30 carry guy.
Touch. Yep.
Yeah, 7 catches, okay? So he's getting the 7 catches. He's not getting the 25 carries. But I think people in the NFL take a look at him and they say, he's a third down back.
Yes.
Every team needs one. He's a good one. Is he a great one? If you ask him, yes, he is. But he wants to be more than a third down back. But that was even during his rookie year and the next year and the next year and now coming into this season, okay? So I don't think he's ever been totally happy. Now, I get where he's coming from, and I think you have to look inside his comments. He's saying, hey, listen, I don't want to be here. I'm not blind. I realize what my role is, and that role is going to shrink come the 9th game of the regular season when Kareem Hunt becomes eligible, and he understands that. And so he's saying, hey, listen, do yourself a favor, get some compensation from me, but move me now, because he's saying I can get into a camp with a team at the start of their training camp rather than what happened, this is important, rather than what happened to Carlos Hyde last year. Carlos Hyde got traded. They moved him. Okay, he went in and he jumps into an offense. He's late. And nothing to do with him. I mean, it was when the trade was made. That's tough. It becomes like a lost year. And Duke doesn't want that to happen. So I understand where he's coming from. Okay? They just haven't gotten the right compensation for him. Okay? And they want a 4th or a 5th round draft choice, and they haven't even come close to that. And yes, he was on the trading block, and they were going to try and move him, but they couldn't get what they wanted. They thought they had an avenue with Philadelphia before the draft, but they didn't get the pick that they wanted. Now, they need him at least at the start of the season.
No question.
Now let's go to the Baker part of it that you bring up because, that's important. That's Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield doesn't want a distraction. I mean, Baker Mayfield is the true leader of the football team. And he is the leader of the football team in the huddle, in the locker room, off the field, in the community. Look at what he did last week with those kids. Had a weekend they'll never forget at his quarterback school, at his quarterback camp in Mayfield. That's Baker Mayfield. Love him or leave him. That's what he's at. I mean, he's not gonna pussyfoot around anything. He is saying, hey, listen, the train's moving. You know, don't pull the train back, Duke. The train's moving. It's
we don't have time for it.
We don't have time for it.
We don't have time for it.
Is it self-inflicted? Yeah. It's self-inflicted. I think they're going to try and trade him. I think they realize he's unhappy. I think they don't care about that right now because unless they're totally comfortable with Dontrell Hilliard, and I know they like him a great deal, but unless they're totally comfortable with him right now, I don't see them moving him, and he's an insurance policy, and it's a business.
And it's a long season. Last Browns thing today, and because of the OBJ thing, it kind of got pushed to the side. But early afternoon, we got the note from the Browns that their starting left tackle from the first half of last year, Desmond Harrison, didn't get to minicamp apparently, and he has been let go.
Yeah, let me explain. I know the story about that, so I'll explain it. Desmond Harrison had a close personal friend, like a lifetime friend, pass away tragically a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago. He has not dealt with that well. It's been very difficult for him. He's had a tough time concentrating on football. It is a business.
It is.
The train is leaving.
Yes.
And they don't know if he's going to get back on the train mentally to be able to handle what they need him to handle. And it's going to be very difficult, Dino, to make this roster.
Right.
Okay? So they're parting ways. And that's the story there.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
Imagine now he's the first guy that replaced Joe Thomas.
Yeah, I mean
in the last season.
Yeah, I mean that was how highly they thought of him.
I know Spencer Drango's out there and saying, "Wait a minute, I was the guy that did it when he got hurt." But really, last year when you had to make a definitive move at left tackle, he was the talk of training camp last year. He's an undrafted guy out of West Georgia, right? Who kind of got kicked out of the University of Texas for an off-the-field issue. Doug Deacon said as perfect a natural footwork tackle that he has ever seen, but he could not put it all together, and then you add in a personal tragedy, and it just was too much for him to handle.
Now, obviously, the job's Greg Robinson's. Are they going to be on the lookout in the waiver wires? I mean, I heard the name Trent Williams kind of thrown around because I think Washington's trying to put something together. I don't know if the Browns would be involved in any kind of a trade, but is that something where between now and the end of camp they may be on the lookout for a veteran replacement, or is it one of those things where they feel like they can fill from within because they seem to like to get these offensive linemen who can play multiple positions, like Corbett, like they talked about Bitonio playing left tackle at one point last year.
Well, they have like you said, Greg Robinson's the starter, and Chris Hubbard's the starter at the other side at right tackle. They have Kendall Lamb that they signed, and they've brought him in. He's there. They drafted this kid, Drew Forbes, and he is going to be a tackle of the future. They have an excellent offensive line coach right now, James Campen over from Green Bay. He's doing a great job with them already. And he's a no-nonsense guy, which also figures into the Desmond Harrison thing. That's the slate right now. If they felt that they were really thin, I would think that John Dorsey would consider, that there's a precious piece of cargo back there wearing the number 6. And so everything is to protect him and keep him safe. And if he doesn't feel they have the right amount of depth or the quality depth behind a guy like Robinson, then I would assume that they would make a move. But I think going into camp, I think they feel they're okay.
All right, so that's what's going on with the Browns.
And this other kid, I have to tell you, this other kid, from St. Ed's in Michigan, Kyle Kalis, has done a great job, and they're really doing a lot of fun things with him.
I love when kids we cover in high school, you get to see them on the NFL playing field, even in a practice setting, and you just sit there and you go, man, I remember watching him. I remember Kyle Kalis. I called many of his games.
Really?
Yeah.
Let me just say this too. We're going to move on. If you went to Browns players, okay, if you're with a group of Browns players after every practice so far this week and in OTAs and said, who's the best player on the field? Unanimous, Kareem Hunt.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Take a 5 count on that one.
Yeah.
Take 3 good breaths and come back, because that's coming. That's on the way. That's 9 weeks into the regular season. I mean, they say by far.
That's amazing. Yeah. And
he's the best player on the field.
Judging by what we saw in Kansas City, I don't doubt that. It's amazing to think of what is going to be out there when we get to week number 9.
Yeah. You're not getting that on more sports.
No,
I love more sport. I love Les Levine.
Sorry, Les, you're not going to get that.
I don't think you're getting it.
Nope,
okay,
you're not going to get that.
Yeah, you're getting a Corky and Lenny's corned beef sandwich, but you're not getting the Kareem Hunt story over there. Okay.
So all this is happening today with the Browns, and then suddenly I'm in my car driving, and I heard the guys at Bull and Fox on the radio break in with this. Carlos Carrasco is out indefinitely. He has taken a leave from the Indians. They're not giving much specifics other than say it's a blood disorder, but we don't really know anything more than that. Terry Francona was virtually in tears. You can see our story right now at WKYC.com, and got choked up talking about it today. We'll get to the baseball implications, but I know for you, anything like that hits home, and Carlos is such a great young man, and is so popular in the clubhouse and popular in the community. It's just devastating news.
Yeah, it really is. 32 years old. He was suffering from some fatigue. A couple of weeks. He was always tired, I guess, and so when he kept reporting that to their medical people, to their training staff, then the obvious thing to do is, okay, well, let's get you checked out, see what's going on. I would assume it's a blood condition, it's a blood disorder. There's a blood test, obviously, that they would take, and they would do all kinds of tests like that. They're talking about a treatment plan and what's the best option for him, and that's why he's stepping away from the game. 32 years old, nothing to fool around with. A very, very, a troubling state of affairs over at Progressive Field, and it has, it's just, does it just not feel like their year?
Yeah.
It just doesn't. It feels like one of those years, and you can complain about Brantley leaving and everything like that, but who could foresee what has happened? Everything. They put all their chips on their pitching.
On their starting rotation.
And Kluber's got a broken arm, and Clevenger's been really hurt since the beginning of the year, and now this. Yeah. And, it's Bauer by himself right now and Bieber.
And then you start, Jeffrey Rodriguez, who I think is also now
hurt.
On the injured list. Yeah. And Plesac, but you're sitting there now with a 2-man rotation. Tonight they're doing a bullpen game because they're so shorthanded.
Yeah.
And it's what we always talk about in March. It's like, you can have all the great starting pitching rotation in the world, but sometimes you got to have depth because unforeseen things happen. And I'm with you. It's just at some point you sit there and you go, man, I hate waving white flags. But it's you just feel like it's not the Indians' year, and start to retrench here at some point very quickly and start figuring out what are our best moves to position ourselves so that at some point 2020 we can be back in a position where we can be a competitive ball club again. I hate to look at things like that, but you're probably going to be 11 and a half games after tonight behind the Twins, and I know they're still in striking distance of the wild card, but to me, it's a numbers game now.
Yeah, it really is. That's a long way back. And, and I said this on one of the newscasts the other night. I don't see a 10 or 11 game winning streak from this group that would get them back. I mean, that 22 game historical winning streak that sent them off and on their way was amazing. But I don't see that right now. They're torn and tattered, and the strength of the team was their pitching. I mean, that was everything going into this season. That, we gave up on Gomes and Brantley and Yonder Alonso and
Encarnacion
and all of those guys. Those guys are all gone, okay? And Gonzalez is gone. And all those players are gone. And we don't know if Zimmer, we don't know what the heck is going on with him. I mean, we don't know what's going on with him. But we have that pitching.
Right.
Okay? And so two things happened. Number one, I don't think they ever anticipated that Minnesota would go off and run like this and hit like this and pitch like this the way they have through the first 60 games of the season. And number two, their pitching, the strength of the team would be ripped apart. It's been gutted.
Yeah. It's. I wonder if at some point, when they would take a realistic look at their assets and say, okay, what would we have that other teams would covet that could help us down the road? Bauer.
I would say Bauer.
Hand.
True.
I mean, I hate to say Francisco Lindor, but
it might be too early for that.
I think it's a year early. I think it's a year ahead of that. But Bauer.
I mean, it's not like they're. I mean, if they did that, they could go over and play at Old League Park.
Correct.
I mean, you could shut that place down over there and keep it nice and clean for the All-Star game because nobody would go. Not that they're banging the door down over there right now.
Yes. But you take away Frankie and
you're down at League Park.
Right.
You're playing exhibitions.
Yeah. And finally, it sounds like we didn't get a lot of specifics from the Quicken Loans people, but apparently, Dan Gilbert, the Cavaliers owner, just an update that he's asking people at the hospital, hey, can I please get the beverage that I want? And if I don't get it, you need to look at your decision making and your best practices. But emphasizing that it is going to be a long road to recovery, as strokes often are. Yeah.
Boy, that's amazing, isn't it? I mean, I can remember seeing him at the John Beeline press conference.
Yes.
And he was kind of, jovial, and he was kind of haphazard, as he is, okay? He was trying to run a video. You remember the day?
Yeah,
said,
absolutely.
All right, where's the video? Where are we going to do the video and everything? And he was telling great stories about, Beeline and what he said about Mike Gansey and that kind of thing. So, I mean, he was in control of things. And this is a favorite time of the year for him. I mean, he loves to be in that draft.
Oh, yeah.
And, of course, they have the 5th pick in the draft. So, of course, he loved being in the NBA Finals.
His arena, his palace is getting, we got our first look kind of at the renovations going in. And, I mean, it's set for, I think, September to when the Black Keys will play over there as the first kind of event when it's reopened.
Right.
I mean, that's a source of a lot of pride for him, too. And it's like he's not able to be around for, he can't run his day-to-day business. He's not around for the draft. And his palace is being rebuilt. And I just can imagine how frustrating it must be right now. And the most important thing is for him to get better and to do what the doctors and everybody tells him to do. But just our thoughts are with the Gilbert family and the Cavs family and the Quicken Loans family as they're going through all this.
Well, you wonder at some point if the Cavaliers should come out and talk about what's going on.
Right.
Like who's running the show.
Right.
What is going on there? What is not that there's a succession plan, but is there an order of power there with the owner not being there at such a critical time for this basketball team? You can have the NBA Finals. I mean, we've had that, right? But July is a critical start of the season in the NBA of what's going to happen. And this July is going to be like every other July, maybe even more so, with the movement of players and the drafting of players and the accumulation of assets and what you can do in the future to try and rebuild this thing. And I know that Dan would want to be at the wheel for that.
It's a critical juncture.
Right.
It's a real critical juncture. But, our best, our thoughts and our best wishes to Dan and his family as he continues on the comeback trail. And, no shortage of things to get into. And again, the best-looking player, I want to make sure we say it again, the consensus, best player on the Cleveland Browns, according to everybody. Every day,
you could go up to the Browns players, and you could say through OTAs and in minicamp, who's the best player on the field every day? Kareem Hunt. I was told that today.
I mean, I would have thought
he's the best player on the field.
I was thinking it was either going to be Myles Garrett or Baker Mayfield or
and you would be well within the range of expectation to do that. But Kareem Hunt is the best player on the field.
Kareem Hunt.
Wow.
Get ready. It's going to be a fun
Well,
fall.
I mean, you drew me into that with, the Kyle Kalis story.
I know, right. You talk about.
I mean, I had a bucket of tears coming out, from the days when you were calling Kyle's games.
I couldn't.
But there's Kareem Hunt.
That's right.
At Willoughby South.
That's right. All right, Jimmy, thank you so much.
You got
Thanks also to Tyler Carey for running the show tonight. Thanks to you all for watching the Donovan Live Postgame Show on WKYC's Facebook Live and on YouTube.